All right.
Got this.
You ready?
Yes.
Let's do this. I like this intro.
I like it. It's smooth.
It's Bad Bunny.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
What's up, people? Annabelle here, and this is Open Mind Podcast. This is actually episode 4. We are back. It's been a little while since we had an episode. We've both been super busy, but we'll get into that. I'm here with my co-host, the CEO and founder of Open Mind Marriage and Family Therapy.
Yes.
Clinical psychologist, beautiful soul, beautiful person, my friend, my confidant, Miss Danielle DeVoe.
Hello, everybody. Woo! And I do want to say I am a psychotherapist, not psychologist.
That's right. What did I say?
Psychologist.
You're everything.
I know.
You are.
Gotta get it clinically appropriate.
That's true. That's true. We're here.
We're here. What's up?
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
How long has it been since our last episode? Probably been like a month.
A little over a month, maybe?
Probably over a month.
Like a month and a half, maybe?
Yeah, we've both been ridiculously busy with life and work and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So what have you been working on in the last month and a half?
Really, really bunkering down and building my business. I've been on a radio show, so it was...
Oh, that's right. I did listen to the radio show. You gave a shout out.
Gave a shout out to podcasts,
to Dreams to Reality Network. Yep. That's where we're on.
That's where we're on. Big shout out to this man. So it's just been a big game.
Yeah, that was actually a really interesting conversation you had with your uncle. Yeah. He's hilarious. I like him a lot. He's a really funny dude. And,
there's no filter.
Yeah, and actually I learned a lot about, what you do as well from that. Because I know you and I talk to you every day, but I didn't really ever go into detail with your art therapy stuff. Yep. I know that most of your clients are just through, what is that called? Regular therapy?
Yeah, talk therapy.
Talk therapy. Mm-hmm. But I never really understood art therapy. And it was funny because when your uncle was talking, I kind of realized I'm in the same wavelength as him. I don't know anything about art therapy. So the questions that he was asking, I was kind of on the same, what is it? What you just, and then the way you explained it, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because I think most people, when they think art therapy, they think woo woo.
Oh, for sure.
They think what is drawing a painting going to do? It's
they doubt it.
But the way that you kind of explain it on a psychological level and on a kind of intellectual level, anyone that has a rational mind could be like, oh wow, I can see how that can help someone, as far as therapy goes. Yeah,
and diving into the unconscious.
Yeah, so we'll get into that, or maybe on the next episode. We'll talk about the different forms of therapy, because this is a show on mental health. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot of different what do you guys call them, formats?
Yeah,
because there's cognitive therapy,
cognitive behavioral. There's psychomotor therapy. There's EMDR.
EMDR was one that I was going to try, and I got scared.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go into my childhood trauma, and start crying and shit.
Well, you have to be ready. You have to be ready for it. It's tough work. When I commend my clients being in therapy, because I challenge them in ways that it makes them uncomfortable. And so it takes courage to really lean into that part of that shadow.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel in today's age it's more common and more accepted for people to see a therapist.
It is.
But before it really wasn't, and people kind of looked at it as why are you picking at old scars, why you just let it be,
it's taboo.
It's taboo. Don't talk about the past, don't talk about... Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of reasons why people were that way. But one of the reasons I feel is because it is painful to revisit traumatic experiences that have shaped you as a person and shaped your life, which leads perfectly into today's subject or topic, which is narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. Yep. And a lot of people, I would say most, that are in these type of relationships, come from those type of relationships. They come from
it's familiar.
It's a toxic situation. Maybe their childhood was very traumatic, and they've developed a certain personality traits to survive, which has allowed them to survive, but at the same time causes more of that same havoc and destruction that they've had their whole life, you know, so they kind of leave a trail of destruction.
Well, and with toxic traits in a relationship and narcissistic personality disorder, they're really trying to protect themselves from the pain. Yeah. And so, but they really are seeking intimate relationships. They really want it, but then they're so scared of it that they sabotage it and they push it away. And they'd rather protect themselves. And there's a lot of behaviors and traits that really can be destructive to the partner of that narcissistic personality.
Yes. And, you know, I was telling you before we recorded today and all that I was feeling kind of nervous for this episode. And, you know, I had to find ways to relax myself before today's episode. You know, because my whole life, I never really had any. I had a great childhood. You know, you know, my parents are awesome.
You have amazing parents.
You know, they're always supportive, no matter what I did. Very loving, very caring. So I come from a really good family, and I never experienced any kind of like trauma from like my parents, my brothers, my siblings, my family. So, and I've always kind of been a bit of an empath. You know?
I was going to say that. And your mom is very much.
My mom's like 10 million times more than me.
Yeah. And that's where you picked up that empath compassion.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I tell people like I'm a dog whisperer and I'm a child whisperer. Like every single dog like automatically trusts me and loves me. And same thing with little babies. Since I was a kid, it was weird. Like anytime there was a little baby, they would look at me and they start smiling and stuff, you know, and they would trust me. Like, you know, they put me in my hand, they stop crying and stuff. So it was like this weird energy that I always carry where I can kind of feel people's emotions and I could tell when people are like, you know, scared or
But you
whatever.
also tell me a lot too that a lot of people tell you they feel safe with you and your energy, regardless of how long you've known them. And that also is a part of that component of having empathy.
People, you know, I'll go out like on a date with someone and be like, oh my God, I feel like I've talked to you forever. Like I feel comfortable, you know? And because of that, I've attracted a lot of, you know, toxic people that have kind of abused and, you know, they've caused a lot of damage to my life. And, you know, I wanted to talk about my experience dealing with these people, you know, and kind of share my input and insight of what I learned along the way. You know, so I think the first thing that we should do is really talk about what is narcissism, what is narcissistic personality disorder, and what is a narcissist, you know, because I think the word is overused.
It is.
To be honest.
Extremely.
I think that you need to have a healthy amount of narcissism to succeed in life. You know, you have to believe in yourself. You have to, you know, at times put yourself in front and, you know, take care of yourself to survive and to thrive. But having narcissistic personality disorder is a whole nother ballpark.
It really is. And it's about 6% of the world is actual NPDs, narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes.
But there are a lot of individuals who have more traits than others within that category of narcissistic personality disorder. So before we go into it, because we are going to go into the Bible therapy of kind of giving you some insight of what those traits look like. But this is not my specialty, so this is not going to be clinical. It's going to be more informational and just personal in this episode.
Yes,
I want to put that out there.
Yeah, we were talking before. You weren't sure about having an episode on narcissism without having a specialist or someone that, you know, specializes with NPD. But I told you, you know, I don't think this episode is going to be on the clinical side. I think this is going to be more on the interpersonal experiences and just giving practical feedback from your point when people are dealing with these type of relationships. And I wanted to focus specifically on relationships, you know, whether it's husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, mother and children, you know, even like a employee-employer type of situation when we are dealing with a narcissist, you know, and how to either overcome that situation or remove yourself, you know, because like you said, it's only about 6% of the population that are truly narcissists that are diagnosed.
Yep.
It is a very, very, very difficult personality disorder to diagnose.
Yeah.
And most of those people never want to seek help for it because
most of them don't.
I'll be honest with you, most people that are very high on these narcissistic traits are very successful. They're very charming. They're very manipulative. They're very controlling. They put on an image to the world
Very
that is
suave.
very separate from their true identity. There's a quote that I want to read to you guys before we get into it. A huge shout out to my good friend, Dr. Corey Castillo. He's been a friend of mine for, are probably coming up on like 10 years, maybe longer. He wrote a book. It's called Discernment, and it's a book of quotes of his. And one of the quotes is on narcissism that when I read it, it really hit home for me. After going through my abuse, I guess you can call it that, I read it and I was like, wow, that really hits home. So it says here, the narcissist presents not as a boastful fool, but as an enlightened savior and noble friend. Yet underneath its skin, it's a false idol. It's compelled by its own image, fed by hollowed praise, committed to a false justice, and determined to devour anyone who dares shed light on its emptiness. The narcissist hates you. The narcissist hates me. It hates God. It hates itself. And it's a very powerful quote. And when I first started to study on what narcissistic personality disorder was, the words that always came to my mind was just evil. It's just a form of evil that unfortunately some people have, which is all they care about is themselves, and
they lack empathy.
They don't care about others' emotions or feelings or thoughts. It's lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it takes to get what I want.
And hurt whoever's in my path.
And unfortunately, they usually do accomplish their goals because they're either very charming or very wealthy or very something that they have that they're dangerous people.
Charismatic.
So I tell someone, like, if you feel you're dealing with a narcissist, a true narcissist, I mean, to me, my only option is to remove yourself from the situation because you're not going to change them. But if unfortunately you can't do that, like this is your mom, your dad, or someone that you have to deal with, then I would definitely recommend to get a therapist, find someone that specializes in these disorders, that they can give you more specific insight on how to set boundaries, how to, not be affected by the narcissist, because it could be very, very, very damaging to your psyche, to your emotional health. I mean, there's people that'll kill themselves. There are people that'll kill others. Those people that'll just snap because they're in these cycles, these abuse cycles. And they're trapped. They're trapped because either this person has all the money and they have no other where to go.
Which is a huge one.
They have power. They have, maybe some kind of blackmail against them where they don't want to expose, or, there's something that's holding them there. Or maybe they just don't know any better, and then that's all they want, they have. And it's a horrible life. It's a prison dealing with these people. So I wanted to preface it with that. And I want you to go into the traits.
The clinical aspects.
The clinical traits. So these are 9 traits that people with narcissistic personality disorder have.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, you have to have five or more.
5 or more.
To be diagnosed by a psychologist,
licensed therapist, or psychiatrist.
Yeah. So go ahead and go into it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go over the 9 traits. Again, I want to stress it's very hard to be clinically diagnosed as a narcissistic personality disorder. I'm going to just say NPD because it's just quicker.
From now on, if we're saying narcissistic personality disorders, NPD. Saves us time.
Yeah, saves us much time. So, okay, we're going to go into it. So the first one is a grandiose sense of self, of importance. So, for example, they want to be praised and feel superior even if there's nothing for them to be praised for.
Yeah, they call that narcissistic supply. So they always need to be praised.
Yep, and fed into.
Yeah.
Right? The second one is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love.
Yeah, they have a grandiose sense of self, and they have an unrealistic view of the world.
Yep.
Of that, like their love is like a fairy tale love. You know, their success is a fairy tale success. So it's a good and a bad thing because it drives them for the best in the world.
Yes.
But it's horrible for everyone around them because they treat them like trash.
Well, and that's the thing too. They have this grandiose sense of self where they think they're better than others. They think they're better looking most of the time than others.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to show that or express that. Mm-hmm. The third one is believes that he or she is special. So kind of goes into that uniqueness.
Yeah.
And can only be understood by or should associate with other special, higher status individuals.
Yeah.
The fourth one is requires excessive admiration. Mm-hmm. Lots of praise.
Yeah.
Wanting to always be told they're amazing, et cetera, excessively, not in a moderate amount or healthy amount. Has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations.
Yeah, that's a big one. The unreasonable expectations. Like if you're dealing with a boss who's a narcissist, oh my God, like no matter what you do, it's never good enough.
It's never good enough.
And if you're dealing with a husband or wife that has that, you feel like no matter what you do, you're always wrong. You're never enough.
You can never win.
You could never win. You're always wrong. It's
always your fault.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
And a lot of the times when you're in conflict with this personality disorder, you're the one always apologizing.
Yeah.
And there's no ownership.
We'll get into that on this next part. Go ahead and wrap up the
Okay. Number 6 is interpersonal exploitive. So takes advantage of others in order to achieve their own desires, needs, and dreams.
Yeah. They will lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it takes.
They will do whatever it takes. They will steamroll you to get what they want. Lacks empathy. That is a huge one. Lacking empathy is not considering other people's emotions, not considering how it would make others feel, and not really caring how other people feel. If someone's crying in front of them, they're not going to feel really much remorse about it because it's about them.
It's weird when you like cry in front of a narcissist or someone that lacks empathy. Doesn't have to be a narcissist, but it could be someone that just struggles with having empathy. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been in that situation because like they don't like, for me, when someone cries, like I feel like crying with them.
Yeah.
I feel their emotions. Like I feel their pain and their suffering and that's the empathy that, you know, that's in me. I was born with it. I don't know what it is. You know, if someone is like suffering or struggling, like I feel for them. You know, and when you're emoting to someone that lacks empathy about the abuse that they've caused to you, they feel nothing. They really don't care.
Well, and that cycle for someone who has so much empathy, again, and narcissist personality, so NPD personality or any personality disorder really attracts the empaths.
Yeah.
Because we're very vulnerable. You know?
There's succubus.
There's succubus,
vampires, and energy vampires.
They take advantage of that good heart and that empathy and the care and the sympathy and they fiddle it.
Yeah.
The 8th one is often envious of others and believes that others are envious of them.
They have a very, very fragile ego. But if you shine light on that, they will explode on you.
Yes,
like, no,
and they will make it about you having that sense of
it's
self.
It's a very, you feel like you're walking on eggshells when you're dealing with these people because you can never call them out on their bullshit because it becomes about you.
Yep.
You know, go ahead and read.
And there's no conflict that would ever be resolved.
Yeah.
The 9th one is shows arrogance, haughty behaviors, and attitudes.
Yeah, they're great at manipulating people with emotions.
Yes.
You know, the big ones that I kind of experienced were shame, you know, not being enough, you know, so you kind of like are chasing after something.
Well, it's the devaluation component.
Yeah, there's like there's a lot of traits, but these are the 9.
These are the 9 top traits that you have to have 5 of those to be diagnosed with NPD.
Right.
Again, it has to be by a clinically trained individual, not just like by a family member. I heard these and you have that. there's reasons for it, because us clinicians, we go in and we explore. So if I was reviewing this with a client, I would actually explore each trait and have them give concrete examples within the family system, within the relationship, within self, to be able to assess appropriately if that is really a trait or if that's just someone's ego of judgment.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right, cool. So this next part, I kind of want to go into what's called the narcissistic abuse cycle. So anyone that's dealt with a narcissist before, or someone with these traits, is very familiar with this cycle.
Yes.
You know, and it feels like a roller coaster. You know, it's a very intense emotional cycle of abuse. That's what it is. This is a cycle of abuse.
Yes. And a lot of the times you don't know you're in the cycle of this type of abuse until you're like, something is happening and I can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're going to share this is huge for people that can relate.
Yeah. And again, I'm not here to point fingers at anyone, you know, talk bad about anyone. Everybody has a way of dealing with life, with traumatic experiences. And I do have a sense of empathy for people that have these disorders, you know, because mental illness. Life is, it might seem on the outside like, wow, they have everything. They're wealthy, they're good looking, they have, you know, fame, they have this, they have that, but their inner world is not that. It is a living hell. You know, they're not happy with themselves. They're not happy with others. Nothing's ever good enough.
Extremely insecure.
You know, it's a torment, and they're not very happy people, even though they portray it on the outside. So I do feel some empathy for them, and it's caused by them living. They have a long history of trauma themselves a lot of times.
Oh,
you know,
no,
like
majority of the time.
Their parents were just horrible, you know, like they've been abused in one way or another, whether it's physical, sexual, like whatever it is.
Well, that's the thing. Personality disorders are formed. You're not born with a personality disorder. They're formed from your childhood.
That's interesting you say that. There's really no way of finding out, but from current information that we have and what we believe, it's a combination of both. It's a combination of your biology and also your upbringing and your environment. Mm-hmm. So they call that nature and nurture. So nature would be you come from a relative, your mom or your dad that had those same traits. You know, and then their parents had those same traits, and it's visible. You can see it with the naked eye based off their life. You know, they're drug addicts, and like they've been 3, 4, 5 different marriages, and all these kids everywhere. You know, their children have disowned them, or they ended up in prison for doing something, killing someone, or robbing someone, or you know, they live a very disastrous life.
Well, it's generational trauma.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you have. So that's the biological, like you have their DNA in you, and then you go through those same damn experiences, you develop the same traits.
Yes.
You know, so, but also if you have a good upbringing, good household, good people that are guiding you, you're able to kind of remove yourself from that trauma, and you might develop different, survival tactics, survival skills, and different personalities. Your personality is made from when you're like an infant to you're like 3, 4 years old. Like that's who you're going to be as far as your deep rooted, hardwired personality.
And not all people in family systems of parents with personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, they don't always end up. A lot of the times they don't end up like their parents because they learn what not to do and how to learn and cope and have different survival tactics that help them survive. But they will still have some traits because it's from their conditioning.
Yeah.
So it's a weird observation to really look at and analyze because it's so conditional based off of one system. Yeah,
I agree, and it's there's a lot of nuances to it, and I don't want to get into those muddy waters, but I do want to get into the narcissistic abuse cycle, and I'm going to share parts of my story of my life of going through this, what my thoughts were at the moment, what my feelings were at the moment, insight that I gained during those times, what I would do differently now, what I am doing now. And as I'm going through that, I'd like for you to give input on clinical and just your own life experience of maybe how you would recommend someone acts if they're a client of yours that's 100%. Dealing with this, or something that you've maybe gone through and what you know would help, so that people can, you know, take care after their own mental health. Because if you're in, like I mentioned, if you're in these cycles, it can lead to, you know, a very, very bad situation.
Well, and severe mental health issues too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it leads to PTSD as well.
Oh, extremely. You know? It's so traumatic.
Like I've cut off from these relationships and they still affect me. Like I find myself doing things like, it's weird.
It's residual effect.
It's weird, you know. So I'll get into it because it's part of the cycle. Definitely. So before that, I do want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Ramani. You know, like I mentioned before, I never had known anything about narcissists or studied them or anything. But once I was in this relationship where I was dealing with these things and the repercussions of it, the questions that started popping up in my head were why? Why is this person treating me this way? Why am I feeling this way? Why are they doing this to me? Why? I would ask myself that, and that led me to want to find an answer. How can I fix this? How can I, you know, because you start blaming yourself. You like, how can I fix this stuff?
Self-blame, self-doubt,
and
all of it.
That led me into studying, you know, what is going on. And the first person that popped up on YouTube, you know, I can't even remember what I typed in. And I was like, and I'm not going to get into it, but it was Dr. Ramani, and she's really, she specializes in NPD. I mean, her YouTube has like 1.4 million followers and her videos get thousands of views. And she can kind of explain more in detail on a lot of these traits. Cause like I said, I'm not an expert.
And I'm not a specialist.
So if you do want to learn some more things about narcissistic abuse, narcissistic personality disorder, there's actually different types of narcissists. There's covert narcissists. There's, you know, grandiose narcissists. There's different types. And we don't want to get into, like I said, all that. Yeah. I just want to help people that are struggling and suffering from this cycle that we're going to get into on some insight on what you can do to remove yourself from that situation. But if you want, I'll put her link in the video. You guys can check out her page and what value she brings as far as that. So
additional info.
Yeah. So there's 4 parts to the narcissistic abuse cycle. The first one is called idealize. The second part is devalue. The third part is discard. And then the fourth part is Hoover. Now, this cycle, you know, will continue forever if you don't remove yourself. That's what a cycle is, a circle of repeated abuse. And the only person that is suffering from this is you know.
And it creates a trauma bond. And once you form a trauma bond with this individual, it makes it 10 times harder from the brain to detach.
Yeah.
Because you get familiar with this cycle and it re-manipulates the brain.
And essentially that's what the narcissist is doing. Their whole life is this cycle.
Yes.
From one person to the other, or as long as they keep one victim, you know, and they don't go too long without a victim because they need that narcissistic supply. It's like they hate being abandoned. They hate being wrong. They hate losing. It's like they detest it.
Well, abandonment is the core fear.
Yeah.
Of narcissistic personality.
Yes, that's the biggest one. They hate. They don't want to be abandoned because,
and they will abandon you way before you could ever abandon them.
And they'll have a lineup victim before you even leave. You know, so so the first part is idealize, which is a phase of immense flattery, gifts, excessive attention to appeal to your heart. They weaken your defense mechanisms and allow you to draw into a whirlwind romance without even realizing it. They call this the love bombing phase.
Yes.
And for anybody that's been in this, I'll tell you my experience. When I met this person, you know, it was one day to the other. It was just the most highest emotions I've ever felt of like love. You know, it's like they give you everything that you want to hear, everything that you want to feel. They're very, very smart and manipulative in telling you the things that you want, you know, because you feel vulnerable with them. You're explaining them your life. You're telling them issues that you had. So you're being vulnerable to them. Later it becomes very bad because they use this to hurt you. But in the beginning, it feels like you're the most important person in the world. You know, they care about you more than anything. If they have a lot of money, they're probably spending a bunch of money on you. If, you know, it's a sexual thing where they're very beautiful, they're just giving you crazy, wild sex. So you're like, wow, you know, it feels like a drug, like the highest high you can get, you know. And
well, it is. It's releasing chemicals in the brain.
Yes.
Dopamine, serotonin.
And I can tell you, when I was in this phase of the love bombing phase, even when I was in it, I saw the red flags. I saw all the red flags. Mm-hmm. You know, it was like, they're lying to all these people. They're manipulating people. They're vindictive. They're cruel to all these people in their life. You know, they're isolating people. They're like all these. You
were special.
Yes, this is what I felt at the time. Yeah. I'm like, not me. I'm special. Yeah. I'm the most important person in their life. They would never do that to me.
Yes.
You know, but you see all these red flags and you're so into the drug that you gaslight yourself. You know, you bullshit yourself.
Yep.
And you're like, you know what? They would never do that to me.
Because you also don't want to remove that from your life.
Yeah, because you're having such a great time. It could be, like I said, imagine you're just living a normal life and then some rich, handsome guy comes to you and is like, here, let me give you all this dick and all this money.
Of course. Well, I'm a little different, but that
you know what I mean. You know, well, I guess for guys it's different. For guys it's different. You know, and you feel like, I don't want to let go of this.
Yeah.
And they're so manipulative and good to the outside world. They're like, man, why would you not? Like, you should just, you know, commit. And then they, you know, you start to get all these feelings of like, wow, this is it. This is all I want. I just need this drug for the rest of my life. I want to feel this high forever. And to me, even seeing all the red flags, I, you know, fully went in like 100%. And one of the big key indicators for people that are in this stage, when you're in the love bombing phase, one is that it doesn't last long. It's like 8 to 10 weeks at the longest, you know, if you're lucky.
If that.
It doesn't last long. And two, it's super fast, you know. The relationships were like, you know, like I met, I was like married within like the first couple. I was engaged in the first couple of weeks, you know.
That's a true story, guys, by the way. He's not joking.
Yeah, it was like first couple of weeks I'm engaged, and like first couple months, yeah, exactly. It's like, fuck. It doesn't last long, that stage. And for people that are in that stage, what I would recommend is, you know, the relationships that last longer are the ones that are kind of, you take your time to get to know the person. You know, you take your time, like you get to know the full person, how they
handle conflict,
how they communicate.
Yes.
You know, when you don't see eye to eye on certain things, your view system of the world.
Do they take ownership? Do they not?
Yeah. Do they take accountability when they're wrong? You know, you know, a lot of these things that are super, super important for a healthy relationship, it takes time to understand if you're compatible with someone else.
And to cultivate it.
And that goes back to one of the traits, is that they have these unrealistic expectations, and the way that they love is a fairy tale love.
Yes.
You know, and the problem with these things is that they never last. It's an illusion. It's a fantasy. No relationship is a freaking Disney movie, you know? People are all different. They all have different points of view, you know? So you might agree on certain things. You might not agree on other things. It doesn't matter who that person is. It could be your mom. It could be your brother. It could be like, we can be like best friends, but there's going to be one or two things that we may not see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And knowing how that person reacts to certain situations, you know, is important for your own mental health and your own peace long term. So my recommendation would be to slow things down when you're kind of going through these crazy emotions, or at least be aware of what it is. You know, well, if you want to, if he wants to spend all kinds of money on you, take it.
Take it.
Just don't.
Just know what you're getting into.
Don't get addicted to the drug.
Well, and that's the thing, coming back to self and your own intuition and your own needs and your own boundaries is where you will need skills to navigate this type of personality. And boundaries is the key to those relationships.
Yes, I agree. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
So the next phase is the devalue phase, which comes right after the idealization phase, which is the love bombing phase.
So they lift you up
Yeah.
And then they,
and the crazy thing about the devalue phase is that to the outside world, nobody sees this.
No.
You know,
because it's private.
to the public, they praise you. In private, they devalue you.
Exactly.
You know, so it's such a hard thing because they're not doing anything illegal, but it is psychological abuse, what they're doing to you.
It is.
And a lot of people that have gone through these situations feel so alone because nobody sees what they're suffering through. You know, nobody sees the trauma that they're going through. They see, oh man, he's perfect. What are you talking? What are you complaining about?
All the time.
You know, he's such a perfect guy.
All the
She's
time.
such a perfect girl. She's so this, she's so that. Because they're actors. They're amazing actors. Yeah, they're very good at it.
And I want to kind of give an example of what that looks like, that the devaluation and the praise. So, for example, and this is a huge trait for that NPD personality. You know, you'll be out in public. Let's say you're a married couple or you're in a relationship, and she's probably saying, oh, Annabelle's amazing. He's doing so this and this and this, and I'm so proud of it. And oh my God, don't you want this? And he can do this, and he can support you, and he helps me out, and da-da-da. He praises, because it's a representation of them, her,
right.
Or the partner. And then when you get home, they're going to be like, oh, you're such a piece of shit. You didn't do this right, and how could you say that? And you embarrassed me, and you're not smart enough, and you need to go do this. Complete opposite of what they were doing in public.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah, it's you question your own reality at times, and it makes you go crazy.
Yes.
It makes you go crazy. Now, to read this real quick, the devalue phase, admiration ceases to exist and is replaced by verbal and emotional abuse. This phase is characterized by cruel, degrading, and condescending remarks, often disguised as jokes and sarcasm. Victims feel confused, doubt themselves, and develop low self-esteem. This is a huge one.
Yes.
That is a huge red flag when you start to see this happen in the relationship. Get the hell out. When they start to make degrading, cruel, and condescending remarks and make it seem like it's a joke, that is a huge red flag that you're dealing with a narcissist. They are very vindictive, cruel, and sadistic. So they like to inflict pain on people and see their reaction. It gives them some kind of high.
Power.
It's a power rush. Mm-hmm. So all that vulnerability that you gave to him in the beginning, like, you know, during the love bombing phase, you were so vulnerable to them. You tell them about, let's say you grew up in a poor household, and you tell them, you know, I struggled a lot when I was a kid. My parents went through this, went through that. You know, you're being vulnerable for them to empathize with you. In the beginning, they'll empathize with you, but once that idealization phase is over and the devalue, any information gave to you is now a tool to hurt you. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be comments like, oh, see, that's why you don't work hard enough, because you're going to be broke like your dad or something like that. You know, and they'll be like, I'm just kidding.
It was a joke. Why are you so serious? Why are you taking it so serious?
This is you. You should start working harder.
Why are you so hurt by that?
Yeah, they'll use anything against to devalue. And during this phase, when I started going through this, it talks about here you develop low self-esteem. It is so confusing.
It is.
It's very confusing because you went from like, I was everything to this person, you know, like
you're on a pedestal.
Yeah, you're on a pedestal, and guess what? When you're on a pedestal, you can fall and hurt yourself because you're really up there.
Hard.
It's a bad place to be.
It's a far fall. Yeah.
And you start to question yourself, like, am I not good enough? Am I not doing right? Like maybe it is, you know. And it's a very, if you're dealing with a narcissist, it's very, very difficult because what happens during this phase is that they isolate you from the world. You know, they're very controlling.
Alienate you from your family.
So it's like, you can't go here, you can't go there. Don't hang out with those people. I don't like what they did here. Like, who you with? Like, who's that? Everything is wrong. No matter what you do, you're wrong, you know, and they start to gaslight you. You know, these are some of the psychological abuse traits that narcissists do, is that they lie to you. They gaslight you, which means when you even catch them in their lie, they'll tell you your own eyes are deceiving you. Like, you're not seeing what you're seeing. You're not hearing what you're hearing. You know, imagine if I told you right now, like, you know, this is a laptop. And then you say, no, that's not a laptop. That's a cell phone. And I'm like, no, this is a laptop. You're like, no, it's a cell phone. I'm like, whatever, you're crazy, you know? But after a while, if you start to believe that's a cell phone, you start to doubt your own sanity. You're like, well, what the hell is this a fucking cell phone? Am I crazy? So,
and then on top of that, they will say, "Oh, you're so stupid for not even realizing that's not a cell phone."
yeah. These are psychological abuse that you go through this stage, and for a lot of people, they start to develop depression. They start to have anxiety, and this is what happened to me. You know, when I started going through the devalue phase, I felt like I was walking on eggshells. You know, like nothing I could do was right. I felt alone because nobody would believe me what I was going through. You know, I felt isolated because I no longer had my friends and family close to me, and like my parents are in a different state. I'm alone here. I'm 1,000% committed with this person who's literally abusing me psychologically every damn day. And you start to have very bad emotional health, you know, and when you try to tell the narcissist, hey, you're doing this to me. Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. You know, it always comes back to you. You know,
you're the problem.
You're the problem. And the thing is that at one point you believe it. I am the problem.
You do.
Maybe I am not this enough. I'm not that enough. Maybe I should try more.
Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm taking this too personal. Yeah. Maybe there was a joke. Maybe.
Yeah, and for me, I've kind of been very open about my life and things that I've gone through. I'm not a perfect person in any sense. I've talked about the first episode was on anger, so I know I have a situation where I had problems with anger, and the problem was that I would hold things in until they exploded. And whatever psychological issue you have, it's going to get exacerbated dealing with these people. You know, if you suffer from anxiety, your anxiety is going to be through the roof. If you suffer through depression as a kid, you're going to get super depressed. Whatever situation you are already dealing with, it's just going to get worse. You know, so myself, I was dealing with severe depression, severe anxiety, panic disorder, fucking twitching all over the bed. Like I was living in hell.
Your nervous system was
I was living in hell.
On guard.
I was living in hell. And, but then you believe it's you. So you try to fix it. You try to fix.
Well, and then there goes the cycle.
What happens is that you're chasing the dragon. You're chasing that emotion. All you want is for them to love you, and like they did in the beginning.
Yes.
You want that drug. Like, give me back that freaking drug. I'm like a little monkey that wants that little, that candy that you gave me. Like, I want that again. Give it to me. And it never comes back ever again. They will give you crumbs of that initial love.
The breadcrumbing.
They'll give you a little bit of, so they'll be like, okay, you know, I see this, I see that for a little while, and then it's back to the abuse. So the next part of the cycle is a discard, you know, and this is when they will abandon you. They will leave you, like literally like throwing out the trash without any emotions. A lot of the times, you know, they cheat on you, or, you know, because you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're not giving them whatever. It's very cold and cruel, and just, you feel like nothing. So you go from being the most important thing in the world to being less than trash, you know, and psychologically, can you imagine how that feels? It feels horrible. So
it's debilitating.
Yeah. So I'll read this here. The discard phase. This is where the victim's usefulness to the abuser has ceased. The abuser has found a new supply. They found someone new. Someone to replace the victim to fulfill all their needs. The victim is tormented and thrown away, as is the love shared between them never existed. Yeah, and the thing about the narcissist is that they're very cruel in the way that they do things. You know, they want to hurt you for no reason.
Harsh.
For no reason other than to inflict pain.
Well, there's a reason for them psychologically. It's so they don't have to feel the pain, so they'd rather have you suffer and feel it so that they don't have to do it themselves. Yeah.
So when I was going through this situation here, from going from the devalue phase to the discard phase, I realized myself that I was aware of what was going on in all three phases, but I was so addicted to this damn love.
You're chasing it.
That I was chasing it. I was like, I had this hope, You know, like, well, maybe if I change things, or maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, or maybe if I prove this about myself, or maybe whatever, then I can get that drug again. You know, I could get that love, you know, which I thought was all I needed. But the problem there is that you're never going to find that from someone that has these traits. They're not going to change. They might be able to change for a week or two, but it is so hardwired in their way of being that that's just who they are.
So automatic response.
Yeah. So it's a false love. It's an illusion. It's just like a drug. When you take a drug, you get this rush of emotions, but it's nothing that's truthful. Like, you know, you go on a trip on some freaking mushrooms or something, and you come back to the real world. You just came out of a trip. You know, same thing when you're going through this cycle. It's all an illusion. That type of love doesn't exist.
They won't change because they don't think they're the problem.
Yeah, and you know, my goal here is to help people that are going through this cycle kind of realize where they are in it, and what to do differently. Yep. You know, so I remember I did try at every phase to end the relationship. You know. And when you try to end the relationship with a narcissist, they feel hurt.
Well, abandonment.
They're feeling abandoned.
Core wound.
That is their worst feeling, is like, you hurt me by abandoning me, even though you're doing it to save yourself, for the best of reasons. And you explain it to them, and maybe they even understand. But unconsciously, they have to win. They have to win, and they hate being abandoned. They hate being hurt, and they're so cruel and vindictive that they will leave you in a really fucked up place in a really shitty way just to be like, I win.
They don't want to feel powerless.
I win. You didn't leave me. I win. And they tend to win. You know, they tend to win all the time. So what I would say to someone is, your best luck is to get out. You know, that's my personal recommendation, is to don't have any longer contact. If you don't have to, you know, disconnect and save yourself. You know, for me, it was very difficult. And thank God that I was able to disconnect after this stage, after the discard.
Yeah, what was that final straw for you?
I guess I could talk about it now since it already happened. Or
do you want to save that for another day?
Yeah, I don't want to get into details for a myriad of reasons. But I will say this, that what changed for me was self-accountability.
Okay.
And understanding what had happened, and taking accountability for myself. Stop being a victim, stop blaming other people, and take control of my life. So what changed was that I stopped being a little bitch, and I sat down and I thought about it, and I said, I created this. I did this.
I accepted this.
I am the one that saw the red flags and still went into it. Mm-hmm. I'm the one that allowed the abuse by not knowing how to set boundaries. I'm the one that created this self-inflicted hell by, you know, being bamboozled, you know. And it's a very, like I was telling you before we hit record on this, that it was embarrassing to me, because I don't like looking at myself as a victim of abuse or of anything, you know. But I was duped, you know.
Yeah, and what I said to you, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, because it happens to the best of us, especially the people who have the big hearts. And it also guides us to see where we need to strengthen that core within ourselves. You know, my divorce and my deception of a lot of these traits of my marriage was really what made me come back to myself.
Yeah, it was a catalyst to an evolution of me. And I've gone through a lot of evolutions in my life. You know, if I'm a Pokemon, I'm like in my third or fourth generation. Yeah. But every time I go through these transformations, it comes from pain and suffering. Of course. And I went through a lot of pain and suffering by going through this cycle with someone, that I came out a strong as motherfucker, you know, like nobody could really mess with me anymore when it comes to my psychology and my own mental health. You know, before I had trouble like I would hold everything in until it exploded. And it would explode bad. You know, I'm a pretty, like I told you, I'm like a lion. I don't move a lot, but when I do, it's
ferocious.
It's a ferocious, you know, I'm a savage when I move.
Yeah, I've seen your anger.
So I had to handle that. And I realized that there needs to be a healthy way of setting boundaries, of knowing, like, I'm authentic as shit now. Before, I think I created that because I wasn't authentic. I just wanted to make the narcissist happy.
So that's the biggest part about the brain chemistry, right? It creates the same addiction cycles as a drug would do to the brain. It's the same trauma bond. It's the same addiction cycle chemically to have you keep going into that route. That's why it's so hard to get out of. Like you say, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It took you a while too.
Yeah.
And the biggest part is the boundaries. And if you're not getting your boundaries met, you still have to choose you.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want you going to see our daughter's performance at da-da-da-da-da-da, and I'm going to make you late at any point. And so that's where they have to go, okay, no, I am going to go to my daughter's performance. If you want to go or not, I'm taking the car.
Yeah.
You still, because a lot of the times they bow into the narcissist.
Right.
Oh, they conform.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he doesn't want to go. I'm going to miss this has happened with some of my clients. I'm going to miss my parents' funeral. I'm going to miss my siblings' funeral.
Yeah.
Because my husband didn't want me to go. Yeah,
it's horrible.
That's stuff you regret, but that's part of the manipulation.
Yeah, the hard part is that sometimes the narcissist is a family member, and it really affects the family dynamic, which it goes, people miss funerals, miss birthday parties, miss graduations, because they don't want to deal with that person. They don't want to associate with them, or, you know, you're a sibling of a person that's high with these traits and you're under their household. Like, it's just so many different scenarios that I've witnessed, you know, of people dealing with narcissists, and they leave just a trail of destruction, you know, with every relationship. All the relationships are just horrible.
Well, they're dysfunctional.
They're dysfunctional.
And that's how you know.
Yeah.
If someone has these traits, it's very hard for them to have in-depth, long-term relationships.
Yeah.
They're all surface level.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, the cycle, it's visible. You'll see them go from guy to guy, girl to girl, you know, 3, 4, 5 divorces, all the relationships are shit, and it's always the other person's problem.
Not very good close friendships.
Yeah, nobody likes them. You know?
Or they like them, but they only know the surface. They
only like them as far as how they can use them.
Exactly.
You know, it's either a business relationship or this type of relationship, or I'm trying to get this from that. They don't really have any true friendships. All the friendships are, what can I get from you and what can you get from me?
Yep.
So they live a really sad life. You know, it might, like I told you, it might seem on the outside like it's all gravy, but it's not. It's
misery.
Yeah, and they have such low self-esteem, you know, and such a sensitive ego that, you know, they're never going to be happy because they have this grandiosity and they feel like nothing's ever enough. Even if they get everything they want, they wouldn't be happy.
No.
Yeah. So, anyways, the last phase of the narcissistic cycle or abuse cycle is Hoover, you know, and the narcissist attempts to draw back a victim back into the abusive relationship by any means necessary. So that's begging, crying, guilt tripping, projecting, blaming, shifting,
seducing.
So seducing again. There's, and I went through this, you know, because I told you at every single phase I tried to leave. You know.
Well, you even told me before you even married her that you tried to leave.
I tried to leave pretty much every single phase. And I saw the red flags, and I was just really addicted to that love. But at this point, you know, they'll have either people, you know, watching your life and going back to them and giving them the info. They call those, you know, flying monkeys, like from The Wizard of Oz. Or they themselves will be like looking into your life to see what you're doing. If they find out you're dating someone else or seeing someone else, they'll try to make your life a living hell. You know, they can be dangerous people. You know, they can, you know, there's some narcissists that have other traits that end up like murdering their ex-wife and stuff because they don't want them to ever leave them. You know, it's like, and you see this over and over in serial killer documentaries, or just in true crime documentaries, where the husband murders the ex-wife because she moved on. You know, she finally released herself of this fucking demon, and then he decides, no, you're not even in life.
Nobody can. If I can't have you, nobody can have you. Mentality.
Yeah. It's so sad, you know. But it's very common. Enough so that I decided to let's do this damn episode, because I think people need to have some kind of practical information that they can know what they're dealing with, and then seek out help. You know, there is a therapist that can help. You know, both you, the victim, and both the victimizer.
Yes.
You know, it's harder, you know, to work with the exactly a lie. And like I said, if you're the victim of these situations, I'll leave you guys with this as far as my own personal input. You have to save yourself, you know. You have to, at one point, set boundaries with people and choose you over trying to make everyone else happy.
Yes.
And
as hard as that is.
You know, like, because like I said, I consider myself a little bit more of an empathetic person, you know, and I tend to attract these kind of people into my life. And I'm so giving that I always feel like I give more than I get back.
Which has you build some resentment.
Yes. And I have this built up resentment in me, which explodes in a very violent way from time to time.
Well, and it also can go towards people who are actually showing up in your life and still seeing it in that way.
Yeah. So this cycle has really affected my life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And not good ways, you know. And
well, the trust too component.
Yeah, it's caused me to not really trust people anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's hard.
Like, you know how people get jaded and stuff, and like they become like kind of cold. Like I'm scared sometimes of not being able to love how I used to.
I feel that. I'm gonna be honest, because even with my marriage, I was such a giver. I was all in. Giver.
Yeah.
And now I'm at this point where I still show up who I am authentically, but I have to constantly like question my even giving.
Yeah.
And if it's too much, because I don't want to fall back into that trap, and there's an ongoing fear.
Yeah, and I mean, like I had mentioned before, whatever issues you kind of deal with, because we're all humans, you know.
Yes.
And nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Scarred.
You know, going through these abuse cycles, it exacerbates everything, you know. So you start, like, I always had feelings of not being good enough, not being worthy, you know.
Yeah, same.
And like, imagine going through that situation.
Well, it just feeds into the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. And I always I think part of the reason why I also was like so hooked on this drug, because one of the things that I felt my whole life as a kid, I always felt like I was extremely smart. Yeah. And creative and useful. And I like to showcase my skills. And I always felt nobody gave a fuck, you know, like nobody listened to me. And I felt like I was like a background player, you know, instead of being, even though I was the captain of the basketball team, and even though I was like I'm telling you, I had like all the athletic skills and all this stuff.
And you were friends with like every group?
Yeah. I was like a little chameleon.
Yeah.
But I always, even being in that situation, I felt, you know, like a background player is weird. You know, like I even in high school, I started my first band. I wrote every single song for the band, and like pretty much was like the main creator. And then when we go on stage, like, oh, you're in this band? Like, I thought it was just these other guys. I was like, oh man, like this is my fucking band.
Gosh.
You know, so I always kind of felt like background, you know. And when I got that attention that I always wanted, like someone just like bombing me with love and making me feel like the most important, like the one important person in the world.
You finally felt seen.
Yeah. You know, so it was like, that's why I was always craving that again and again and again. And, you know, now it's it's changed me in a lot of different ways, you know, where now I can set boundaries with people. Now I'm kind of focusing more on accomplishing the goals that I want to do instead of trying to help other people accomplish their goals. I still to this day try to do that. And I realize it's not a smart thing to do because it always ends up hurting me.
Yeah.
You know, like I try to build people up and then it bites me in the ass.
Well, you want to love people the way that you want to be loved by people the way that you love.
Yeah.
And there's a disappointment that comes in with especially empaths and givers, that we show up so big for people that we get disappointed for not receiving it back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know why my mouth is like super dry, even though I have like water with me.
It's the throat chakra.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, you're releasing all of this information finally. You've been holding on to it for a while.
Yeah, and there's a lot more.
I know. I mean,
there's a lot more. But I think it was
start.
important to share this. And like I said, yeah, there's a lot more, but I'm hoping that people have gained some type of practical knowledge that they can realize what situation they're in and change it for the better. You know,
Yes.
For me, like I said, what changed for me was I decided to take accountability for my life. I've forgiven my abuser, you know. That was a hard thing to do. It was really hard. Because what happens is when you go through this, I left with so much freaking hatred.
Of course.
So much hatred and so much like
Anger.
I was left with less than nothing.
Yeah.
And I was left with like I was in the worst position of my life.
Well, and also the way it ended was a big factor.
It was literally, if you can crush a person to like dust and just throw them in the trash and just be like, oh, bye, you know, that's what I felt like.
Wow.
And I had to rebuild from dust, you know, and it's been hard, but it's been worthy of what I'm going to build, you know, so.
What you are building.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to, you know, have this place of self-love and acceptance and healing and really knowing what you're capable of when you get down to nothing and you can really rebuild. You really are showing yourself what you're made of.
Yeah.
It's a profound experience and it's not easy to do. And it's a hard thing to be in a relationship dynamic like that and escape something like that.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm out.
Yeah, I'm glad you're out too.
Yeah, so
And you're getting healthy for you.
Yeah, so I do want to thank you because I felt like you came into my life at you know, a very specific time of my life journey. Like if I would have met you 10 years ago, it would have been, you know, I was still Pikachu, you know. or Squirtle or whatever, you know. I was in whatever this evolved version is. And, you know, I do want to say this about you. Like, I truly love you, you know, and I appreciate our friendship and our relationship and everything that you've given and for hearing me and for everything. You know, I truly care about you.
Well, I appreciate you as well. You also showed up in my life at a very profound moment. So it was definitely a healing we both had to kind of provide for each other as a friendship and really kind of guide each other into what we know we're capable of.
Yeah, I think we're aware of that.
Yeah.
We're capable of a lot.
We are.
So that's the goal.
Badasses.
That's the goal, you know. So what is next for Open Mind Marriage and Family Therapy? Are you taking clients again?
I'm back to paused.
Okay.
I am like.
By the way, I'm gonna build your website. I know I'm freaking lagging on it.
Honestly, I'm not even.
But I'm like, well, she's not even taking clients, so I got 3 billion other projects going. I'm like, should I just? I'll do it. I promise you, I'm gonna get it done.
No. But that's also why I haven't really pushed you on it because I know that once I launch it, more people are gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of clients.
And I'm so booked. Like,
we gotta hire you some.
I need to really get crunched down. September is where I'm really gonna be hiring like a handful of therapists and just launch that. But There's a lot, and there's accounting stuff going on, and I
Yeah.
needed to figure all that out before.
Yeah, that's the thing about a business. People think like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, you better be ready for it because it's a lot of work. You know, trying to build a business from nothing, it's like you're creating something that's it's very difficult. You know, which is why most people join a job because it takes away all the difficult part.
All
They
the
don't
hard
gotta worry
part.
about
You just
anything.
show up,
Just show up and get paid.
Yeah.
How easy is that? You know, the hard part is you get paid shit, but
Exactly.
but at least you get paid.
That's the difference.
You know, now being a self-employed entrepreneur is like you got to work and get paid.
You do.
You know?
And it's a whole different game. Like you're a one-stop shop. You're doing it all, you know? So,
yeah.
And you're learning as you go when you launch your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the part where you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's okay. Because that's where you learn.
That's it. So, guys, I want to thank you again. Make sure to subscribe to Open Mind Podcast YouTube. Share it.
Like it.
Sure we really want you guys to share this episode. I think it's going to help a lot of people out there, at least shed some light on their situation so they can get some more help. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.